Hi guys, Rita here. I wanted to answer a question today, and the question that I will be answering is why student accommodation and why not student accommodation. Student accommodation is not for everybody, but there are so many benefits and reasons why I love student accommodation that I thought that I would share it. Often I hear my coaching students would say, Rita, we want to do room rentals or multi-lets, because that is kind of the buzzword in property investment these days, right? Want to do multi-lets, because why multi-lets? Because when you have a property that you're renting out to multiple tenants, you've got multiple incomes in that property. So if one person isn't paying, that's fine, because you still have other tenants that are paying. So why students versus multi-lets, or students versus room rentals? It's very tempting for people to say, great, I want to rent out rooms, and there is definitely a demand for that. But here's my view. For students, there's a few benefits. Number one, you're renting out beds, not rooms. So think about that. If you have 2 beds in a room, you actually have 2 tenants per room. So in terms of your income, it definitely makes your income more. So therefore, your income situation is actually better. Then if you then think, okay, but students are noisy, they are messy, they damage your property. Some of those things are true, and some is really just a myth, and it's about how you manage the property which will make those things come true or not. So it's really up to you. So first of all, students are generally better payers, especially if they still want to study, they want to continue, they're on bursaries, so the money is coming, the money is secure, and you need to make sure that money, that's the students that you take in, that their parents co-sign for surety, that their bursary students. So you want those type of students, because that the money is coming. And if you couldn't house NSFAS students, then you obviously want to make sure that they do qualify and that your house is accredited, and then things get a little bit more tricky. But at least that the money is coming. If they are private students, the nice thing is that this is not their primary residence. For students, it is not their primary residence. Why is that important? Because your eviction process is a lot simpler and easier. You don't have to go through all the court processes that are applicable for normal residential tenants, right? So much easier to evict someone if you need to. Then furthermore, students, you can have house rules, and it's easier to get them to comply with the house rules than it is adults, right? So you can, for instance, say no alcohol. Yes, they're still going to slip something in, but it's much more difficult for me, definitely as a woman. It's much more difficult to go and tell an adult male that why are you drinking, and then probably is drunk as well, and you can imagine the mess that comes from that. But with students, it's very different, because you're the mother, you're seen as the mother, so there's a lot more there in terms of respect. 99% of the time, right? You always get the odd one out, but you're seen as the adult, and they listen. And if they don't listen, you can fine them, and you can deduct the fines from their deposits or whatever else it is. So much easier in that type of situation. So in terms of the discipline, it's much better. Your rentals are better. Normal tenants, they're going to fight you over every single thing. Like, I wasn't here for 3 days, so why must I pay for electricity? They have kids that run around. They have animals that pets that they might want to keep on the property. And now you have kids running around, you know, and unfortunately I have 3 lovely kids, but trust me, I know that they can be super annoying, especially when they were little. So so I have no, you know, misconceptions about that. So definitely when you mix the tenants, now you all of a sudden you have a lot of kids running around, and guess what, little kids break things much more than students do. With students, it's generally just by accident that they might break some things, but again, you need good supervision, right? Because you don't want them to get drunk and then things will break a lot more often than you could imagine. So definitely, I would prefer students any time of the day. Are they noisy? Yes, they are. Why wouldn't you want to do students? Because it's definitely more intense, you know. So when you do, your admin is much more intense than normal tenants, right? So your vacancy rate is a lot lower with students, so you're generally fuller than with normal tenants. They're definitely noisy, they're going to break rules, and you need to have your ducks in a row in terms of your disciplinary code, and so on, that you want to enforce, right? And you have to be consistent in enforcing that. So your paperwork to get your bursary, money coming through, all of that is extra admin. So just know that you're going to work much harder in admin and that sort of thing for student accommodation than for other tenants. But I had another house that we were taking over, and while we getting it ready for students, there were a lot of adults staying in the house, all room rentals. And to be honest, I mean, it really, one day I remember I showed up there, next minute there's the police and everybody looking for this tenant because of a drug situation. I'm not saying it can't happen with students, but it also happens with room rentals. So definitely, you know, it's for me, it's the same in terms of that, but your rentals are much more definitely coming to you, and you don't have to fight and try and evict people and go through the long eviction process, which I think is critical for you to be able to do it. Why not student accommodation? Because, guys, let's be honest, intake is when students move in, right? If you then have people moving out throughout the year, you're going to struggle a lot more to replace those tenants than with normal tenants. But it's going to take you longer to evict the normal tenants than with students. So it kind of balances out, right? And then, of course, you have 2 tenants. You have a lot more tenants with students, because you have to manage the students, you have to manage the parents, you have to manage the university, bursary officers, and so on. So there's a lot more tenants as such that you have to manage and keep up to date and communicate with. So definitely your admin, your communication, all of that with students is a lot more intense. But I definitely think the benefits, more money, definite money, easy to evict, more controllable. I definitely think student accommodation is the way to go. But you guys already know that about me. Well, if you guys found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.